everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling, something that I know a lot of you struggle with, and that is how to make automation testing work with Agile Scrum,
Right.
not against it.
Mhm.
And, you sent us a document here titled Automation Testing Agile Scrum.pdf.
Okay.
And, it seems like you're trying to figure out how to get all that speed and all that flexibility that you get with Agile, but you don't want to sacrifice the benefits of automation.
Yeah.
It's a tough kind of tightrope walk there, isn't it?
It's like, you see in the document, there's this real tension there, and it's almost like a spectrum. You got like your really structured automated tests,
Yeah.
on one end of the spectrum, like regression testing, which is great, for confirming things work as expected. But then on the other end, you've got this world of exploratory testing, which is much more flexible.
Right.
Ideal for like those brand new features where you don't really know what you're doing yet. You're still figuring things out. And the key is figuring out how to balance those two.
So it's not like an either or. We're not saying ditch automation just because you're
Oh,
Agile.
no, not at all. It's about understanding like when to use each approach and really like tailoring your strategy to the situation. The thing is, traditional automation testing is kind of like stuck in the past.
Okay.
It's very waterfall-y, very predictable steps,
Yeah.
lots of planning up front, big emphasis on confirming what's already built. And Agile is all about embracing change,
Mm.
adapting on the fly. So those two can sometimes clash.
Yeah, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the time crunch of Agile. Our listener here said typical sprints are 1 to 2 weeks long.
Oh, wow.
How are you supposed to do all this comprehensive automation testing in that short amount of time?
That's where it gets really tricky. You have to be super strategic about what you're going to automate. You can't automate everything. It's about finding the tests that'll give you the most information in those sprints. And a lot of times that means focusing on regression testing.
Okay, so you keep mentioning regression testing. What is that, and why is it such a good fit for automation in Agile?
Think of it like your safety net for Agile.
Okay.
You're constantly making changes, right?
Hmm.
Adding features, fixing bugs, tweaking things. Regression testing makes sure that those changes don't accidentally break things that were working fine before. So you're basically rerunning tests on old code just to make sure nothing's broken.
Oh, so it's like catching those oops moments before they reach your users.
Exact.
I can see why that'd be so valuable in such a fast-paced environment like Agile.
Yeah, and that's where automation really shines. Because instead of manually rerunning all those tests every time you make a change, you can just automate them. And that frees up your human testers to do more like exploratory testing, which is also really important.
So there's like a division of labor. Automation handles all the repetitive stuff.
Yeah.
And then the human testers can do the more investigative tasks. But how do you decide what to automate? I mean, that seems like that could be a really tough decision to make in the middle of a sprint.
It's not just, checking all the boxes. There's a little more to it than that.
Mm-hmm.
A good starting point is to think about the two main types of regression testing,
Okay.
unit regression and functional regression.
Okay. Unit regression.
Mhm.
Functional regression. What are those?
So with unit regression testing, you're basically laser focused on like the individual components of your code. Imagine you're building a house, right?
Okay.
Unit testing is like making sure each individual brick is good before you start building the walls. Functional testing is like checking to see if the doors and windows work once the house is built.
So unit testing is those smaller building blocks. Functional testing is how it all works together.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you can automate both of them. But the approach and the tools you use might be a little different.
Okay.
For unit testing, you might use something like JUnit or NUnit. Whereas for functional testing, you might use Selenium or Cypress.
So this tool selection thing is starting to sound really important.
Yeah.
Our source mentioned licensed automation tools
Mm.
and how those can be kind of a roadblock. It sounds like you're saying Agile thrives on openness, but some tools can lock you in.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider, especially with Agile's emphasis on collaboration and information sharing. These really restrictive licensed tools can create bottlenecks and hinder the flow of information.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of open source tools out there that are more flexible and fit better with the whole Agile mindset. The trick is finding the right ones for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, there are a ton of tools out there. How do you even start? What are some of the key things to think about when you're trying to choose an automation tool that works well with Agile?
Well, ease of use is a big one.
Okay.
You want a tool that your team can learn quickly and easily without needing a ton of training.
So something intuitive
Exactly.
that doesn't require a computer science degree to figure out.
Yeah. because Agile is all about speed and efficiency, and you don't want your tools to slow you down.
Right.
Another important thing is integration. Can the tool integrate well with your existing development environment, your version control system, your collaboration platforms? If it can't talk to the other tools you're using, it's going to cause problems.
Yeah, it's like trying to jam puzzle pieces together that don't fit.
Yeah.
You just end up spending all this time fighting with the tools.
Exactly, instead of getting your work done.
Okay, so ease of use, seamless integration. What else?
Reporting is also really important.
Okay.
Agile is all about transparency and making decisions based on data. Your automation tools should be able to generate clear and concise reports that highlight potential problems, track progress, and provide actionable insights.
So no more like digging through mountains of data trying to find the little nuggets of information.
Yeah, you want the information to be readily available, easy to understand, helps you make quick decisions. That's really what Agile's all about.
It is. This whole conversation has been really eye-opening. We went from this initial feeling of tension between automation testing and Agile to now understanding that it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding the right balance, selecting the right tools, and focusing on those tests that give you the most value in those short sprints.
Exactly. And that's really just the beginning. There's so much more to explore.
Well, luckily for us, we have more time. We're going to take an even deeper dive into some of those agile automation approaches and how those concepts actually play out in a real-world sprint environment. When we continue this conversation in part 2, don't go anywhere.
All right, so let's pick up where we left off and actually imagine we're in the middle of a sprint.
Okay.
How do these automation concepts actually play out in that fast-paced environment?
Yeah, I'm picturing like, a whiteboard with sticky notes everywhere, a clock ticking down, the team's like buzzing with energy.
Right.
Where does automation fit in?
Well, first of all, you got to remember that those short sprints we were talking about, 1 to 2 weeks typically.
Right.
That means your automation workflows can't be these big, long, rigid, multi-week things. They have to be flexible enough to adapt to the changes that come with Agile.
So it's not like you just set up a bunch of tests at the beginning and then let them run on autopilot.
Yeah.
You got to be more hands-on.
You got to be a lot more hands-on.
Yeah.
Think of it like building with Lego. In Agile, you're constantly adding and rearranging those bricks. Your automation needs to be adaptable enough to test that evolving structure, not just the initial build.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be able to adjust test cases, modify scripts, and respond to new requirements that pop up during the sprint.
Okay, I'm starting to see how important that flexibility is. But
Okay.
what about the results of those automated tests? How do those feed back into the whole Agile process?
Well, that's where reporting comes in.
Okay.
Remember, Agile thrives on transparency and rapid feedback loops. Your automation tool needs to be able to generate reports that everyone can understand. Developers, testers, product owners, everyone.
So no more sifting through like
Yeah.
tons of data,
Yeah.
trying to find the key takeaways.
It's exactly.
Imagine having a dashboard that highlights failed tests, pinpoints the areas of code that need attention, and even tracks your overall test coverage. That kind of information is gold in an Agile environment.
Yeah, it seems like. We're talking about more than just a pass or fail. It's like you're getting insights that can help you make decisions throughout the sprint.
Exactly. And remember, those insights need to be available to everyone on the team, not just locked away in some separate test department.
Right.
That open flow of information is really what keeps an Agile team moving quickly and efficiently.
Okay, so I get how important the reporting is, but let's go back to the tests themselves. You mentioned earlier that simplicity is key. Why is that so important when we're talking about Agile?
Okay, so put yourself in the shoes of a tester in the middle of a sprint. You've got new features to test, bugs to verify,
Yeah.
and all those automated regression tests to keep an eye on.
Right.
You don't want to have to deal with complicated test scripts that take forever to set up and run.
So we're talking about streamlining those automated tests.
Exactly. Make them super efficient, easy to execute.
You want to minimize the number of steps, use clear language, avoid unnecessary complexity. The goal is to make those tests self-sufficient so they can run in the background
Okay.
without you having to constantly babysit them.
So it's about empowering those automated tests to do their job so that the human testers can focus on those tasks that really require their skills.
Exactly.
Okay, but hold on a second. You said earlier that Agile testers might need some coding skills? That sounds like a lot to ask.
Yeah, it's a good point. Not all testers are going to be programmers, and that's fine. But having some basic scripting knowledge can be really helpful in this Agile world.
So you're not saying you need to be able to build complex applications, but maybe just be comfortable enough with code that you can tweak an existing script
Right.
or understand what's going on under the hood.
Exactly. It's about having that level of understanding that lets testers work more effectively with developers, troubleshoot issues, and even contribute to the automation process itself.
So it's not about replacing humans with robots.
Yeah.
It's about giving those humans the tools and the knowledge they need to work with automation.
Exactly. And when you get that right, that's when you really see the magic of automation in Agile.
We've talked a lot about regression testing, but I'm curious, are there other types of testing in Agile that could benefit from automation?
Oh yeah, definitely. While regression testing is usually the first thing that comes to mind, don't forget about performance testing.
Okay.
Imagine you're releasing a new feature that's going to have a ton of users. You could use automation to simulate hundreds or even thousands of users hitting that feature all at the same time.
Okay.
And that way you can identify any performance issues before they impact your actual users.
Whoa, that's amazing. It's like you're stress testing your application in a safe space.
Exactly. And you can do all of this within your sprint. You can even integrate those automated performance tests into your CI/CD pipeline.
Okay.
So you get instant feedback on how code changes impact performance.
So you're baking performance testing right into the development process,
Exactly.
not just treating it like an afterthought.
And that's one of the great things about automation in Agile. It lets you shift left, as they say, bring testing in earlier in the process, catch issues sooner, and ultimately deliver a better product.
Okay, performance testing makes sense. What about security testing? Can that be automated in Agile too?
Oh yeah, definitely. There are a lot of great tools that can scan your code for security vulnerabilities, test your APIs for weaknesses, and even run penetration tests to simulate attacks.
So it's like building this safety net for security that's
Yeah.
always running in the background, catching issues before they become big problems.
And just like with performance testing, you can integrate those security checks into your CI/CD pipeline. So every code change is being checked for security flaws.
It seems like automation can be applied to so many parts of testing in Agile. It's not just those basic functional checks.
You're getting it.
Yeah.
It's about weaving automation into the entire development process. It's about embracing that agile mindset of continuous improvement, constantly looking for ways to streamline your work, enhance quality, and deliver value to users faster and more efficiently.
This all sounds incredible, but I have to ask, where does manual testing fit into all of this? Are human testers becoming obsolete?
Absolutely not. In fact, I'd argue that human testers are becoming even more important in this age of automation.
Oh, okay.
Remember, automation is just a tool. It's powerful, but it's not a magic solution. There will always be things that machines can't do as well as humans.
So we're not talking about replacing humans with robots.
Yeah.
It's about finding the right balance, using automation to make your human testers even better.
There are some types of testing that really need that human touch. Things like exploratory testing, usability testing, and testing for accessibility.
Okay.
These are areas where you really need human intuition, creativity, and empathy.
So it's almost like a dance. Automation and human testing working together to ensure quality and speed.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And like any good dance, it takes practice, coordination, and a deep understanding of the steps involved.
We've taken a deep dive into those steps today. From the core concepts of automation testing in Agile, to the importance of choosing the right tools, the nuances of reporting, and even the changing role of the human tester. But I feel like there's even more to discover, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The world of automation in Agile is always evolving.
All right, perfect. So let's shift gears a bit and explore that human side a little more when we continue our deep dive in part 3. So we spent a lot of time talking about the how of automation testing in Agile, the tools, the techniques, the processes, but I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the who.
Okay.
How does this shift towards automation actually impact the people on the testing team?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly, it's something that often gets overlooked when everyone's rushing to automate everything.
Yeah.
The truth is, this shift can be kind of scary for some testers. There's this fear that automation is going to make their skills obsolete,
Right.
that they're going to be replaced by robots.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all this talk about AI and machine learning taking over the world.
Right.
But you've been saying it's not about replacing humans, it's about making them better. So how do you actually do that? How do you get testers to embrace automation and see it as a tool that helps them, not something that's going to take their job?
I think it starts with communication and education.
Okay.
You have to be upfront with your team about why you're implementing automation, what the goals are. and how it's going to affect their roles.
So no like surprise automation
Right.
implementations. We're talking open dialogue,
Yeah,
clear expectations, addressing people's concerns head on.
exactly. And don't just focus on the technical stuff. You need to highlight how automation can actually free them up from those boring, repetitive tasks so they can focus on more interesting and challenging work.
Yeah, so instead of like manually running the same regression tests over and over again,
Right.
they can spend more time doing exploratory testing, really digging deep into user scenarios, and giving the developers better feedback.
Exactly. Yeah. They become more like detectives,
Mm.
uncovering those subtle bugs and usability issues that automation might miss. It's not just about verifying that things work. It's about really advocating for the best possible user experience.
Okay, I like that. But let's be real. This shift does require testers to learn new skills. We talked about coding earlier. What other skills become really important in this new world of agile automation?
Well, communication and collaboration are even more important than before.
Okay.
Testers have to be able to work really closely with developers, understand the code, the automation framework, how it all fits together. They need to feel comfortable asking questions, sharing their insights, really working as a team.
So it's not enough to just be an expert in testing. You also have to be a good team player.
Exactly. And you have to be kind of an automation evangelist.
Yeah.
Help your teammates understand the benefits of automation. Show them how to use the tools effectively. Really be a champion for continuous improvement.
So the role of the tester is changing a lot. It's not just about clicking buttons and following scripts anymore. It's about becoming more strategic, more analytical, and more collaborative.
Right.
But how do you help those testers who might be resistant to change? How do you get everyone on board?
I think you have to show them the value.
Okay.
Don't just tell them about it. Give them a chance to play around with the automation tools, to contribute to the automation strategy, and see for themselves how it can make their lives easier and their work more meaningful.
So give them a chance to get their hands dirty.
Hang on a
And
minute.
see the benefits firsthand.
And celebrate their successes.
Yeah.
When someone finds a bug using an automated test that they helped create, make sure to acknowledge that. Make it clear that this is a team effort and everyone's contributions are valuable.
Okay, so we've talked about overcoming the fear of automation, learning new skills, the importance of communication and collaboration. But what about the practical stuff? Are there specific training programs or resources you'd recommend for testers who want to level up their automation skills?
Oh yeah, there are tons of online courses, tutorials, and certifications out there that can help testers get up to speed on the latest tools and techniques. Look for programs that focus on the specific tools that your organization uses.
Sure.
And don't be afraid to experiment with different ways of learning. Some people like hands-on exercises, others prefer video lectures, and some people thrive in a more collaborative classroom setting.
So it's about finding the right learning style for each individual.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of mentorship. Pair up more experienced automation testers with those who are just starting out. Create opportunities for people to share their knowledge and learn from each other.
So it sounds like we're talking about building a culture of continuous learning within the testing team. It's not just about learning new things. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe experimenting, asking questions, and sharing what they know.
Exactly. And that's what Agile is all about, isn't it? Embracing change, adapting to new challenges, and constantly looking for ways to improve.
We've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the technical side of automation testing in Agile. We've explored the human side of this transition. And we've even shared some practical tips for helping your team develop their automation skills. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's the most important thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think it comes down to this approach, automation with an Agile mindset.
Okay.
Don't try to force fit old, rigid practices into a methodology that's all about flexibility and change.
Uh-huh.
Be open to experimentation, be willing to adapt. And most importantly, bring your team along on the journey.
That's great advice. It's not just about the tools and the processes. It's about building a culture of collaboration, continuous learning,
Yeah.
and shared ownership of this whole automation journey.
Exactly. And remember, automation is a tool. It's not a replacement for human expertise. When you find that balance, that's when you really unlock the power of Agile testing.
All right, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into automation testing in Agile Scrum. It's a complex topic with lots of moving parts, but hopefully we've given you some valuable insights and practical strategies to help you navigate this ever-changing world. Remember, it's all about continuous learning, adapting to new challenges, and finding what works best for your team. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, But with the right approach, you can make automation a powerful ally in your Agile journey.
And with that, we'll leave you with a final thought-provoking question. Knowing what we know now about the potential challenges and the keys to success, how will you tailor your automation strategy to enhance your agile workflow and empower your testing team? Until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep diving deep.